This week in the Crew Motorfest, they introduced 2 new cars and an entirely new brand to the game. Oh wait, no they didn't. They introduced that new brand and those 2 new cars in their 6-year-old game. What? Let's go! Real quick before I get into the video, if you're looking for a community of racers to play with, join our Discord. There's a link in the description down below. That's also where I do all of my giveaways, and we have every topic in there from the Crew Motorfest, the Crew 2, to Need for Speed Heat, Need for Speed Unbound, everything Need for Speed, and all kinds of other racing games. There's over 14,000 members there, so hit that link and join us. All right, let's get into this. I honestly can't believe I'm making this video, but the team at Ivory Tower has just added 2 brand new cars to the Crew 2, their 6-year-old game. They are the Gordon Murray T50 and T50S. Now, a quick rundown on Gordon Murray. He's a former McLaren designer for the F1 team, and thus why both of these cars look like iconic F1s. The design was obviously inspired by that design anyways. These cars are now available in the Crew 2, and they will be coming to the Crew Motorfest during Season 3, which is about 2.5 months from now. But if you don't own a copy of the Crew 2, you will not be able to get them in the Crew Motorfest because they're only going to be available through collection import. Let me just recap this for you. You bought the Crew Motorfest, and 2 brand new cars from a completely new brand are being added to the game, but you can't have them. Sorry. Then this brings me to the topic of today's video. 600 plus cars in Motorfest is just a complete lie. Kinda. Obviously, there are 640 cars that one can own in the game, but in order to own them all, you can't just play that game alone and collect all the cars. You have to play both the Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest. Now, I took a look at every single car in the Motorfest store, and I counted at least 88 plus cars that are Crew 2 exclusive. There's 39 street cars, 3 drift cars, 8 racing cars. The dragsters, I'm not sure of because I own most of them, and once you own a car, you can't really tell what price it is or where it comes from for some reason. 20 hypercars, 5 Alpha GPs, 1 motocross, 7 rally raids, 1 demolition, maybe 1 rally. I own a lot of those as well. 1 monster truck, and I'm not really sure about the boats and planes, but there could be more. And then add on these 2 Gordon Murray cars. There are a few issues with this. That's just way too many cars out of the 640 that you can't even own, and you own the game. You bought the game full price, and you can't own 88 plus of the cars that are in the game. Now, number 1, Motorfest only players were sold on a game with 600 plus cars, and there are definitely players out there that bought the game because they thought it had a lot of cars. This fib by itself doesn't really seem that bad, considering the game still has 550 cars or so that a Motorfest player only can buy. However, if you combine that fib with the fact that crossplay was also a selling point and the game features no real crossplay, only cross matchmaking in PvP, it just feels like another marketing lie that Ubisoft decided to tell in order to sell more copies of the game, and it honestly probably worked. Secondly, the Crew Motorfest is largely a collection game. There are quite a few elements of the game that make it like that, like the fact that you can't sell your cars or have multiples of the same car for different purposes. The idea being that you collect all of the cars in the game. When you go to the store page, the vehicle catalog tells you how many cars you've collected. Even the process of importing cars from the Crew 2 is called the collection import. The vanities and certain summit rewards are exclusive to that week and cannot be collected again. The structure of the game is set up in a way that gives you this feeling of missing out on filling up your collection, which, to be honest, I don't really have an issue with. It's one of my favorite things about the Crew games, but the fact that you bought a game with a foundation centered around collecting and you literally can't collect everything, including the cars, is a huge issue. Even if you played the Crew 2, you might not be able to collect everything because you would have had to have been there playing every single week since the Crew 2 launched, exclusive rewards and summits. Basically, you couldn't have missed anything every single week. Now, I know that there may not be a ton of players that actually intend on collecting everything in Motorfest, but it's still super frustrating. Some of the exclusive cars happen to be better than their stock originals. Many of the cars that are exclusive are basically reskinned versions of cars that are already in the game, but if that was it and they were just reskins, then honestly, I don't know that this would matter as much. But many, if not all, of the variants are actually faster than their basic counterparts. They usually feature some sort of body kit and sometimes have slightly different performance stats and almost always feel faster and more agile. This makes them not only exclusive but also more valuable, putting players who only bought Motorfest at a competitive disadvantage simply because they didn't buy the Crew 2 and play it the last 5 years. And lastly, I'm frustrated as a content creator that I have the opportunity to make content on 2 different games. However, I might still be looking at lower view counts because the games aren't inclusive enough for the Motorfest only players. I honestly think these issues turn off a lot of players, which means less people searching for tunes on YouTube and less people caring about what the Grand Race meta is, and thus less views for the channel. It's frustrating because I actually do love this style of game. I love that it's a grindy mess when it comes to parts. I love that if I want to sink tons of hours into it, there's always something to be grinding for. I love the exclusivity of the rewards each week, and I love the sort of looter shooter gear collection style mechanics. I'm a fan, but I want more people to play, not less. And this type of collection structure where players are forced into buying both games in order to use everything in the one game just tastes like greed sausage wrapped in a "we want to honor our Crew 2 players" burrito. I get the fact that they were faced with a decision when it came to running both games simultaneously. They had to figure out how to allow players to basically continue their progress from the Crew 2 instead of starting over, for the exact reason that their game is grindy and it's a long-term progression game. They didn't want to ostracize any of the existing player base by launching this new thing that forced them to start over. However, in the process, they've completely left the Motorfest only players out in the cold. The appropriate compromise, in my opinion, would have been to allow Motorfest players to earn all of the same stuff that the Crew 2 players got if those Crew 2 players were going to be able to use it in Motorfest. Whether they get to buy it in the store or there's an entirely new gameplay mechanic of finding crashed cars on an island that has a series of challenges to restore those cars, and then once restored the player gets to own it, or something along those lines. The point is that a Motorfest only player should be able to collect everything in the game they bought. And I mean, there's tons of ways to make the Motorfest player work for it. My only hope is that this video doesn't age well at all. I hope they decide in the future to allow Motorfest players to purchase all of the cars in the store, and I hope that the player base sticks around for that to happen. In the meantime, I've already downloaded the Crew 2 again, and I plan on trying to collect as many Crew 2 exclusives as possible. I'm also planning on making guides for players who are Motorfest only players who plan to go back and play the Crew 2 because they feel like they're missing out on cars or vanities or whatever else is in that game that they decide to launch brand new even though the game is 6 years old. So if you want some help with the Crew 2, you've never played it before, stick around, maybe subscribe if this content is valuable to you. Thank you so much for watching. I will catch you on the next one. Trigger out.